ever checked into a hotel room and felt like you weren't the only guest? A chill that has nothing to do with the temperature, a feeling of being watched when you are completely alone. Some places hold on to more than just memories. They hold on to the people who made them. Tonight, I'm going to take you inside 3 places where the past is still very much present. These aren't stories I read online. These are things that happened to me. Encounters that left me with the unsettling certainty that we are never truly alone. Our first story begins in a place you'd expect to be paradise, the Royal Hawaiian Hotel in Waikiki. 2 years ago, my family and I were there for a vacation. The first few days were exactly what you'd imagine: sun, sand, and total relaxation. The hotel itself is beautiful, historic, but nothing about it felt menacing. It felt peaceful. But on our 4th night, that peace was quietly disturbed. I was lying in bed, later than the rest of my family, watching some old movie on television. My husband and kids were fast asleep. The only light in the room was the flickering screen and a soft lamp on the bedside table. Without any warning, the television clicked off. The room was plunged into near darkness. I figured it was a power surge, but when I glanced at the lamp, it was still glowing steadily. I grabbed the remote and pressed the power button. Nothing. I tried again. Still nothing. Annoyed, I got out of bed, thinking maybe the remote's batteries had died. As I got closer to the TV, I saw the problem. The power cord was lying on the floor. It had been pulled directly from the wall socket. There was no one else awake. My husband is a heavy sleeper, and the kids were out cold. I couldn't explain it. A little unsettled, I plugged it back in, but my desire to watch the movie was gone. I decided to just go to sleep. I climbed back into bed, turned off the lamp, and closed my eyes. I was just on the edge of sleep, in that comfortable drifting state, when I felt a distinct tug on the covers. It felt like someone was pulling the blanket back, slowly and deliberately. My first thought was that my mother, who was staying in a different room, had come in to check on us. But then a cold realization washed over me. I never heard the door open. The lock on those heavy hotel doors makes a very loud, very specific sound, and that's when I heard it. A small, soft laugh. It sounded like a child. My heart was I was taking pictures around the hotel grounds with my digital camera. The place is incredibly photogenic. Later that night, as I was looking through the photos, two of them made me stop. In one picture of the gardens, if you looked closely, you could see the distinct shape of a Hawaiian woman in a beautiful red dress. She looked like she was walking among the flowers. The other picture was of the veranda. In it, you could see a young woman sitting in one of the rocking chairs, looking out towards the sea. She looked distant and incredibly sad. After that, there were no more sightings. But for the rest of our stay, I felt a strange presence around us. It wasn't scary. It felt curious. I believe those spirits were people who had happy times at the hotel. People who loved that place so much that a part of them decided to stay, just to revisit the good memories. From the warm, curious spirits of Hawaii, we now travel to a place with a far more unsettling past: West Palm Beach, Florida. The hotel was a high-quality, well-known establishment, but it had a secret. It was once a hospital, and hospitals, as we know, are places of intense emotion, of life and death. Some of that energy never leaves. My experience there began subtly. I was in the elevator, heading up to my room on the 7th floor. For no reason at all, the elevator shuddered to a stop, and the doors slid open on the 3rd floor. I looked out into the hallway. It was completely empty. There was no one there, waiting to get on. I didn't think much of it at the time. I just pressed the button for the 7th floor again, and the doors closed. But as the elevator started to move, I noticed a smell. It was a strong, sweet perfume, like a whole bouquet of flowers had suddenly appeared in the small space with me. I sniffed the air, confused. I hadn't noticed it before. When I stepped out onto the 7th floor, the smell followed me. It was just as strong in the hallway as it had been in the elevator. I started walking toward my room, and the scent lingered around me. My room was down the hallway to the right. As I reached the corner where the hallway split, the perfume smell seemed to go left. It was the strangest sensation. It was as if a person I couldn't see had just walked past me and turned down the other hall. On a strange impulse, I changed course. I started jogging down the left hallway, trying to catch up to the source of the smell. I did catch up. The perfume became incredibly strong for a moment, right in front of me, and then it just vanished. It was gone, as if it had walked straight through a wall. That was unnerving, but what happened later that night is something I will never forget. I couldn't sleep, so I was lying on the sofa bed, which was positioned directly across from the room's door. It was late, probably around 2:30 or 2:40 in the morning. The room was dark, but a thin line of light from the hallway was visible from under the door. I had this odd feeling, the kind that makes the hair on your arms stand up. I stared at the bottom of the door, and I saw two shadows. They were unmistakably the tips of someone's feet, standing right outside my room. And then they were gone. It was like the person had jumped or been pulled upwards in an instant. I pinched my arm hard. I needed to know I wasn't dreaming. I was wide awake. I kept my eyes locked on the door. I saw movement again, a flicker in front of the peephole. And then I saw the hand. At the very top of the door, where it met the frame, there was a tiny gap. From this slit, a hand emerged, a visible, solid-looking hand and part of a wrist pushed its way through the solid wood of the door. It wasn't a shadow. It wasn't a trick of the light. It was a hand, reaching into my room from a place it couldn't possibly be. The shock was so profound, so absolute, that I couldn't even scream. I was paralyzed. All I could do was lie back down, pull the covers over my head, and pray for sleep to come. My experiences in that hotel left me shaken, but they also fueled a need to understand. That's what led me, a few years later, to an ancient castle in England. I attended my first ever paranormal event, a ghost tour of Clitheroe Castle. The tour started around 8:30 p.m. and was set to conclude at 2 a.m. I went in as a skeptic, but I left as a true believer. We were deep inside the castle, in the old kitchen area. There were about 20 of us in the group. The castle had been locked up for the night, so we were the only living souls inside its ancient stone walls. We were all standing in the middle of the room, listening to one of the guides when the lights went out. The room was plunged into total blackness. A few people gasped. We were all far from any light switches. Then, after about 3 or 4 seconds of thick, tense silence, the lights flickered back on. I glanced at the closed doors leading to other rooms. Light was still filtering from underneath them. The power had only gone out in our room. It was the first incident of the night, but it was just a warm-up for what was to come. In that same kitchen, the organizers set up an experiment to try and contact spirits using a glass. 5 of us, including me, were asked to volunteer. We sat around a wooden table and placed a single finger gently on the top of an upturned glass. The room was dark, except for a single red LED light placed on the table next to a piece of paper with the word "yes" written on it. One of the investigators began to politely ask if there were any spirits in the room with us. They asked if a spirit could move the glass to the word "yes." For a long minute, nothing happened. I could feel the tension in the air. I was still skeptical, thinking that someone would eventually push it. Then it began to move. I was utterly flabbergasted. I could feel shivers racing down my spine. The glass wasn't being pushed. I had tested it myself earlier. The friction between the glass and the old wooden table was significant. You had to apply real pressure to move it, but this was different. The glass was gliding, moving smoothly and effortlessly across the table until it rested directly over the word "yes." We all confirmed with each other that we were barely touching it. No one was pushing it. The investigator asked more questions.
Are you happy we are here?
The glass slid to yes.
Were you a woman?
The glass slid to no. Around 4 or 5 questions were answered this way. Each time, when the investigator asked,
Can you please return the glass to the center of that bowl?
It would glide back to its starting position. This experience, this direct and undeniable communication, blew the skepticism of the whole evening out of the water. It left me desperate to know more. From curious children in a Hawaiian paradise to a terrifying hand in a former Florida hospital, and finally, to astonishing communication in an ancient English castle. These stories show that the world of the paranormal is as diverse as our own. They challenge our understanding of reality. They invite us to wonder what energies, what echoes of life linger in the places where people have lived, loved, and died. These are the moments that have stayed with me. But I know I'm not the only one who has stories like this. the most chilling encounters are often the ones we keep to ourselves. What have you experienced? What have you seen in the corner of your eye or heard in the dead of night that you simply can't explain? Share your stories, your experiences in the comments below. I want to hear them. If you found these accounts intriguing, please give this video a like and subscribe for more journeys into the unknown. And be sure to click the notification bell so you don't miss what's next. Until next time, keep an eye on those unseen guests.